Welcome to another Pioneer live stream. We are very excited to be with you here today. We have, coming off straight off the heels of that very exciting boom unveiling, hopefully many of you saw, we have everything today from people working on new forms of synthetic sweeteners so that you're able to enjoy your future science food and be completely healthy, kind of regardless of the nutrition and taste, to self-replicating robots on the moon. So should be an exciting and convivial gathering of people on the internet, hopefully building a better tomorrow for all of us. In case you're kind of joining us for the first time and don't really know what the heck all of this is, what you're about to see today is a group of people working on everything, again, from kind of simple software to CPGs to moonshot, literally moonshot, endeavors that are a part of this kind of online city, this online community called Pioneer. The idea behind Pioneer is, and you can go check it out if you're kind of just watching this idly and you're not on our website already, it's at pioneer.app. The idea is to kind of use software to build a next generation startup generator, not necessarily an accelerator, but really a generator, a place where you can go to if you're kind of working on a project, big or small, and you're not really even sure if there's much to it, and you can kind of get validation, funding, community network, all the kind of things you need to get started. So the aim is really to give people a chance to enjoy a lot of the benefits that I think you kind of get for free when you come to a place like California or Silicon Valley, London, New York, San Francisco, but on the internet. And so it kind of takes this interesting shape and form of a game that you can play to kind of get validation and feedback on your work. So check it out if you haven't already. And what you're going to see today is a bunch of people presenting their work to a couple of really notable and interesting kind of industry titans, and they'll be getting some feedback on it as they go. We're going to try to make this, as exciting as possible. The internet is, of course, the bytes, the screens, the pixels are not as thrilling as the real world. And our antidote to that is, to try to be merely 1, 2, 5, maybe 10% of a Chris Nolan movie by just being as thrilling as we can be. So, enjoy this with us. And if you're not already, you should definitely check out the experience on our website, where you can get a nice chat interface and chat with people as well. Okay, so basically, we're going to go through 9 companies today. And we're going to have 3 different hosts interview those companies. Our first will be the venerable Sarah Tavel from Benchmark. Highly recommend following Sarah on all various forms of media on the internet. Very good thinker in terms of offering kind of structured frameworks for life. And she's going to be interviewing some of our pioneers. Next, we're going to have Stephanie Zhan from Sequoia. And then lastly, we're going to have Avichal Garg from Electric Capital speak to some of our pioneers. Should be pretty exciting. Now, at the end, if you do manage to make it to the bitter end, we do have a special surprise for you. We're going to be having a live chat, Q&A with the co-founder of Instagram, Mike Krieger, about what it was like to start that startup. And, I think it'll be quite interesting for us. We, of course, all look at Instagram today as a kind of, giant island on the internet, something akin to the size of, a large continent, but it started as a small island, of course. Back in, Dogpatch Labs in San Francisco. And so it'll be a good chance for all of us to remind ourselves that everything big does start small. That is it. I mean, to our hosts and our pioneers presenting today, one final piece of advice, maybe 2, is speak as quickly as you can and feel free to interrupt each other. Make it as interesting as possible. Unfortunately, the issue again with Zoom is that, the joy and the thrill of the internet is only 1 tab away. So the competition is pretty high compared to, just meeting someone in the real world.
Let's bring up our first pioneer and host. Our first host is Sarah Tavel.
My name is Sherif Ali. I'm the founder and CEO of Funnnelll. At Funnnelll, we help startups and small and medium businesses run their own marketing campaigns like pro marketeers. Our customers usually see 3x increase in their transactions running over Funnnelll between 4 and 6 weeks. Our target is to get them to 10x within a quarter. We have launched our beta last year. We've worked with hundreds of startups and small and medium businesses since. We have launched our paid plans and paid subscriptions beginning of this year, and have since reached 10K ARR in less than 200 days, very healthy growth. In order to help our customers to get to this 10x, we need to help them understand where should they put their marketing dollars. In order for them to do that, they need to understand what is and isn't working for them in terms of campaigns, where they're running them, and how their product and landing pages are performing. The matter of fact is, the more data that they can generate, the more sales they can get. However, over 50% of websites, they do not have any kind of tracking whatsoever, and only 25% have very basic tracking. The reason why this tracking is super important is because it what tells your ad networks like Google and Facebook what kind of customers buy from you so that they can drive you high quality leads. And it's why 97% of companies and websites that run campaigns without having conversion tracking fail to return a positive ROI. Our mission is to unlock this 75% that is currently underserved in the market. The problem is they don't have access to technical skills. They might not have marketing know-how. They cannot afford it from a time and a cost perspective. This is where Funnnelll comes in. We want to reduce hundreds of hours of coding, integrating, building, and navigating complex dashboards to a few clicks. Customers can set up the tracking by selecting what they want to track on their website, telling us what this means to their business, like an add to cart or a checkout, and the code is instantly available on their website. It's being distributed to their ad and analytics tools.
So yeah, talk me through this again.
Yeah, so customers would say, I want to track on my website. Right? So we open their website, we attach a Funnnelll panel. They just select the elements they want to track, like a certain page or a certain button.
How are they able to select what they track? I guess what I'm asking, how low code is it? I'm just trying to understand that.
It's totally low code. So it looks exactly like this. This is actually from our live site from a customer. They just said, okay, I want to track how many leads I'm getting. So they go to Funnnelll, they say, I want to track clicks.
Okay,
it opens this window, they selected the button, they say, this is a lead generation, and that's it.
Perfect.
So as long as they understand what their customer journey looks like, they can track it on Funnnelll. So once we unlock this data, we pull it back into our dashboard. We show them where their bottlenecks are. We show them what their drivers are, so they can double down on what works and cut everything else out. Give them actual advice into what they can change today in their marketing campaigns and website so that they can increase their sales. So today we are raising in order to scale up our engineering team to release the next version of our AI and our distribution channels in order to help more customers get the 10x milestone. Thank you.
First question that just comes to mind for me is like, you are playing in a landscape that is incredibly competitive with, just it's a little bit of a red ocean, as they say. And what's the call to action that you think for you guys is gonna help you break through the noise just in the beginning? Like for the 30 that leaned in on you early, what is it about what you guys are building versus everybody else that you see?
Yeah, so we found a market gap because this lower end, which is actually the tail effect, so it's the majority of the customers, are underserved. Like there are no tools for them. All the tools are for marketeers. Those folks cannot afford it. It's too complex for them to understand it. So the point of view that they're coming, that we're taking to the market is, it is super simple. As long as you can, if you know how to read and how to click, you can set up all those complex things that you needed previously coders and marketeers in order to set up. Even when you're running your own campaigns, you don't need to have an extensive marketing know-how, because instead of giving you all those complex dashboards that you have to navigate through and stitch the data together, we're going to give you the insight. This is what you need to do. And you can drill down to understand the data that supports this advice that we're giving you.
Is the advice, like, are you doing multi-attribution, or like what are the techniques that you're using in order to generate the insights?
So it's using attribution, it's using multiple data points that the customers add, so they can link their Search Console, they can link their analytics, they can link Facebook, LinkedIn, they can link over 12 services. And basically what we do is we augment all this data together, and then we use it as part of our algorithm to tell them what they need to do in order to increase their sales. Practically, we are using this like an experienced marketer. The amount of data points is overwhelming, and what we do is we really simplify it, and we give them things that you can actually use.
The thing I always think about is just kind of, escaping competition. When you're playing in a space that does have a lot of other entrants at different levels of sophistication, you just have to be very thoughtful about distribution as well. And talk a little bit about what your kind of thesis is going to be in terms of breaking through the noise to get to this relatively unsophisticated customer as you're describing it.
Yeah, so currently we are mainly using inbound. So customers who are aware that they have a problem, that are trying to break into this market, they're trying to get more sales, who are looking for a solution. This is where they find us, on Google, on Quora, on a lot of places, right? So right now we're talking to customers who are aware that they have a problem. In the future, we are also planning to launch plugins for Shopify, for Zapier, for Segment, So we're going to be in front of far more customers who might not necessarily know that what they're missing, but they can, once they see us, they will understand how we can help their business.
Last question for you is like, look, it's going to be, a fist fight for you in the beginning because you're trying to get the right queries, you're trying to access this customer, you want to build a product that people love, but then ultimately you have to get to a point where you become less and less vulnerable to competition. You escape it somehow. How do you think about that? What's your technique going to be, or what do you think is going to be that moat that you've built over time?
So I think the first comer advantage is really strong here because we give customers a tool that they would otherwise need to 2 or 3 different tools in order to get the end results off. The good news for us is that there are changes in the standard. ITP is coming out by Apple, which is intelligent tracking prevention, and everybody in this space is going to need to make changes. This is a challenge in terms that we need to handle this as well, but it's also an opportunity because everybody is now out of their comfort space. No tool is going to work the same way it used to 1 quarter ago, and it can be an opportunity for us to grab a big part of the market.
Great.
If we play our cards right, which we're hoping we will. Yeah.
Great. Good luck with everything.
Awesome. Thank you, Sherif. Next up, we have Johnny Bree from the UK, who will be presenting Work from HomeLand.
Hi, I'm Johnny, and I'm building Work from HomeLand. The problem is that remote work kills serendipity and social connection. We lost the unplanned chats at your desk, the casual conversation at the coffee machine, and the energetic brainstorming sessions. What we got instead was Zoom quizzes and personal text chat. The solution, a multiplayer space where a team can be together remotely from when you open your laptop until the end of the workday. But the next office won't look like an office. We miss the people, not the cubicles. Instead, Work from HomeLand is a virtual island which you co-create with your team. And I'll show you a little video. So just opening the app from the menu bar, I'm going to unmute myself, and so then my nearby teammates can hear me. If I open the team directory, I'm going to give Julio a little nudge to come join me on the island. Switching to the island view, I can see who's around me, what conversations are happening. I can also see what meetings are currently happening, and so therefore who's not available, but when they will next be available. I can walk in between conversations, changing who can hear me and vice versa, or I can even go and play with the office dog. Work from HomeLand is all about creating a shared now. It's synchronous and ephemeral. Brainstorm and communicate with higher bandwidth by being live in the moment. Feel like you're sitting at the same table, have spontaneous conversations without broadcasting to everyone in the room. And even just walk over and talk to other co-workers just like you would in a real office. And it's designed to be left in the background. It's an invisible open audio channel between you and your team, just like when you're sitting together. You can also see who's in a meeting at a glance, so no more checking calendars individually. And see and join your team in their work. Just click to hop into an app and collaborate. And it's the best of an office remapped for a virtual environment. Office speakers are now a synchronized shared music playlist. And if you're missing the ping pong table, get the playfulness back with in-game meetings. Now, this doesn't mean it's going to be a distraction. Switch it to focus mode at any time, and teammates will see that you're currently busy and it turns off audio. Where are we headed? We're becoming a launchpad for conversational micro apps and folding in real-time collaboration and co-browsing. Milestones so far, we have 250 teams on the waitlist and a closed trial with 10 teams using it every day. Thank you. And if you want to trial it, go to workfromhome.land, and we're currently raising 400K and hiring.
It's very cool. It's interesting. So many people are experimenting with different modalities now to create that spontaneity. And so it's kind of a cool concept. And if I just want to summarize to make sure I really understand it. It's like in the island, I will sit somewhere. I will put my figurine somewhere, my avatar somewhere. And where I put my avatar represents a certain mode for me. Is that right?
Yeah, just like how in an office, you kind of ad hoc, like sort of gather somewhere. Like the default is to sit with people at your desks. And so if by doing that in the app, you're basically able to talk to your desk mates instantly, but you could also, go to one part of the island, or you could go to like the beach or
One of the questions is just, what is the primary use case that you're seeing, or the mode that you're seeing right now for how people are using the product?
So we see a mixture of things. Some people have started to use it as an office replacement, and that's kind of like the direction of travel. Obviously, it's quite exploratory, and we've got like a little bit of work to do to get them to use it for 8 hours continuously. Otherwise, so sometimes teams use it as a fun social space. So for instance, say they're having Friday drinks or something like that. it's a good alternative to Zoom because people are bored of looking at these rectangles of each other's faces and nothing else. Like it's good to be able to do something with people instead of just looking at them. And then people also just use it for having slightly more fun versions of meetings. So we've seen that some teams will just be like, okay, let's just get together and work from home right now.
And when they do that, though, they're looking at the island and the avatars. That's what they're looking at.
Yeah, but it's designed so there's kind of like two modes. So there's like that very visual mode, and you can like run around. There's like game type meetings, etc. So it's like a very visual, fun spatial experience. But the opposite side of it is there's kind of like an invisible mode, which is you leave the app on in the background. It's a Mac menu bar app. And you can just talk, it's just like leaving a FaceTime call open all day, basically. Yeah. And you can choose to opt in and out of it, but whoever you're sitting next to, that's who you can talk to.
You know, because the ecosystem has, like, everybody's experiencing this pain right now, and there's so many different attacks at the same need. It feels to me like you have to know what you're really going to be used for. Like, maybe it's kind of more creative teams, maybe it's younger teams, or like I have no idea what it would be, smaller groups, bigger groups. Like what to you, like if you think about like the white hot center of the need here, what is the team, what would you describe as like this is our perfect candidate?
Great question. So what we've seen and like where it really seems to hit is both startup teams and like creative agencies, and the sort of sweet spot in terms of size is kind of between about 5 and 16 people. That the 16 people is just because at the moment the islands are not massive, but in like a future iteration of it, it would maybe be a little bit more Google Maps like, where you can zoom in and out, or even like switching between islands. Current niche is very much creative teams. It's kind of, it resonates really strongly with 90s kids because at the moment it looks a little bit like Pokemon.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. I think you got to double down then on that persona. You talked about the apps. What are like the first app or apps that you have in your mind right now?
Yeah. So one of the things that's going to come up first will be spatial stand-ups. Actually, it's like a classic thing with a stand-up is, who is it next? And this, like, by virtue of actually having a body in this environment, there's a kind of natural order to it. And so you kind of spatialize that. We're basically trying to take the ways people already use an office and then abstract them. Even the focus mode that's built into the app abstracts the way that people use headphones as a kind of social signal of being busy or not. So we're just trying to take natural behaviors, but not over-engineer it, but create, our version of it.
Hopefully it's the beginning of something great. Thank you so much, Johnny. Next up, we have Tshepo from South Africa, and he's going to be presenting Aspect. Aspect is a kind of a keynote for websites, a better web flow, if you will. And so I'm quite excited. It really has a chance to unleash the power of software into a whole new generation of people like many other companies are working on. So Tshepo, take it away.
Hey, Sarah. Hey, everyone. My name is Tshepo. I'm founder of Aspect, and we're building keynotes for making websites. So why does this matter? Why would we want to do this? There are a ton of other website builders. Well, the reason we're doing this is Aspect, by the way, and I'm just demoing something over here. We're going to do a video and then a practical demo. So the reason we're doing this is because actually all the website builders that currently exist fit into either really two super undesirable categories. Either they're just super high learning curve, or they're super rigid to try to support more simplistic, like casual users. So stuff like WordPress and Webflow will be in the sort of the high learning curve like area, and then those you basically have to become a developer almost to be able to actually like come to grips with those tools. And then stuff like Squarespace and Wix, for example, are kind of so rigid that you actually end up fighting with the tool to try to create what you want. So that was just a demo of it there, and we're going to jump to a practical demo. So I really got to start it so that we could just go super fast. So what we're doing here is basically a website for something like a super high-end brand like Versace or something. And you can notice that basically you'll figure out that we're able, with this rather simple looking UI, to create something super sophisticated. So we're like 80% of the way there. You'll see almost what I'm trying to do here in a second. Okay, so adjusting padding. I'm just gonna put a button here. So you'll notice on all those like super high-end websites for like, I don't know, Montclair or something, you'll notice that they have these like super big splash pages and then some interesting layout. And so that's what we're trying to do here. Let's just change the color. Let's change the font. Enter.
I was waiting for that.
Let's change. Yeah. And then let's say shop now. Awesome. And then one more thing to do is to just make sure that it's the right color when we click it. Awesome. And then just go into preview mode. Okay, so this is desktop mode, and let's just do tablet. Okay, so go back to edit mode, and then stretch, and then resist stretch. Awesome. Okay, we're like, because we're pressed for time, we're not gonna do mobile, but whatever, it's fine. So we just published. Let's just take a look at the published site. There we go. So you'll notice it's super responsive. Obviously for mobile, it's not gonna respond, but there you have it. Aspect, keynote for building websites. It took about 2 months to get to this point, and we're not necessarily raising, but we're open to conversations. And yeah, that's where we're at.
What happens if you press the shop now button? I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
see you actually.
yeah. Oh,
okay,
oh,
you
sorry,
didn't.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
that's
like,
what, okay,
yeah, it's
that's
just
what I
about,
thought.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Awesome. Look, there's such a huge opportunity here. I guess to start, like, talk to me about how are people going to discover your product? Talk a little bit about.
Yeah. So that part's actually super easy. So it turns out that there are a bunch of design communities, especially in tech. So especially like UI designers have stuff like Dribbble, Behance. A bunch of them are also on Reddit. So we actually launched to like quite some fanfare on Reddit. So that was kind of a soft launch. I didn't actually mean to publicize that much, but people just took to it. So, and then obviously as we branch out, I mean, if you look at what Webflow tries to do, they try to onboard UI designers into Webflow, but of course the learning curve is so high that most people just churn. And so we hope to fill that gap and obviously supplant Webflow. But yeah, that's how we plan to grow.
And like when you said that there's like people, you posted in Reddit and it just kind of took off, you had a lot of inbound. Any patterns you noticed in the use cases there?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So the people who actually have the most obsessive usage that basically like just blow up our analytics are actually front-end developers, because what we actually have in the application is not just publishing, but also download. So obviously with stuff like Webflow, you can download the code, but a lot of users notice that our code is actually super concise. I put a lot of work into making sure that like what you actually export is actually production ready, to the point that you can just jump in and make edits that don't feel like you're fighting with whatever like esoteric layout system we're doing. And so so front-end developers use it most obsessively, but of course it's across the gamut. We have users across the gamut. Yeah.
And what are they doing when they're using it?
So everything from email like template to the landing pages, or the scaffolding for the landing pages for whatever they're doing. So whenever I click into stuff that people are creating, I notice that like they're really taking it like 60-70% of the way there, then downloading it and then doing whatever they want to do. And obviously, I think the main reason for that is just because, I mean, it's only been 2 months. This is like I just focus on the super important components to add. And then once we add more sophisticated components, more and more of their workflow is just going to get eaten up by Aspect.
But so it's kind of more internal website use case. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. So basically, So a lot of people are like creating stuff like landing pages for, I think, for clients, because for some users, they're like super different landing pages for like completely different things. So they're not necessarily doing it for personal use. So I think it's a lot of like freelancers and stuff like that. And then on the other end, you have people who are just like creating like email forms or whatever for, I guess, their newsletter or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
My last question, Dan, I promise, is just, with Wix, with Squarespace, a long list. When you land on their product, in the beginning days at least, like it was very clear you were landing on a Wix product. And that really helped with their ability to grow. Like, do you guys, is it a similar feeling when I land on an Aspect site? Like, do I know? Do you help me know?
The answer is no. The reason being that you can create such different kinds of things that you wouldn't be able to, at first brush, you just wouldn't know that it was something created in Aspect. But of course, there's a simple growth hack there to just like put a little badge in there or something, and then, make Aspect cheaper for people who keep their badges on the site or something like that. That's a super simple way to do it.
Super. Thank you so much for that, Tshepo. Thank you so much for that, Sarah. Loved your energy there. Next up, we have Stephanie. And the first is going to be Lenny, who is in New York right now. Very exciting day for us. And he's going to be presenting Milk. Lenny, take it away.
Hey, Stephanie, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for taking time to present. I'm Lenny, one of the co-founders of Milk. Milk instantly turns videos into shareable highlights. So very quick, COVID created a huge number of virtual events and webinars, with brands generating hundreds of hours of recording and marketing and sales teams expected to share the content in engaging ways. I heard from marketers that they spend upwards of 10 hours transcribing, finding key parts of the videos, and editing the contents of single recordings, and Milk cuts this down to 15 minutes. I'm going to show you a quick demo of how it works. Users upload content directly from Zoom or through a file. Milk transcribes the content to make it easy to find the parts that you want to clip. And then based on the content, Milk can recommend templates for you to use. And you can export it just like that. Or if you want to edit it, make it brand appropriate, you can style everything down to the captions. Some of the use cases are podcasters promoting their audio on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Could you walk through a couple
I'll show you one example.
orgs and what's easy about interfacing with them versus what's more difficult? Marketing, ops, engineering, and like sales.
And then we also have companies restyling webinars, making it easy to turn a video call into something that feels branded, and even webinars being turned into landing pages with multiple highlights. We already have users. Some of our early users are saying that sales teams use the videos to drive traffic. Harry Stebbings from 20-Minute VC said Milk is an upgrade from anything he's already seen. And marketing teams are creating stuff that performs and they're proud to share it. We started in July and we hit $1,000 of monthly revenue in September. We're on track to hit $2,000 of monthly revenue this month with cold inbounds from companies like Toyota and various VC firms. We're raising $250,000 to hire an engineer and finish building out our first public version of Milk. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing more, Leonard. Looks super, super interesting. Can you walk me through what it looks like to use the product from the top?
Yeah, so I can't show you a demo right now, but when you have a webinar and you're done, all you would do is upload it into Milk, and then you get an interface that lets you clip a section of the video. And then based on the contents of the video, we have a couple templates that fit video calls with multiple speakers, presentations, or just audio. The audio gets transcribed, so you get these word-by-word captions, which are more engaging when people don't have audio on. And then you have a drag and drop interface where you can add branding, put in your logo, pictures of the speakers, and style text. The end result is that you get an MP4 that you export and you can upload somewhere or to YouTube.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And so are folks using it as a way to kind of capture snippets and create almost a highlight reel of the content that they created?
Exactly. What we found was people won't watch a 40-minute webinar, but the content is really rich. So if they can send a 3-minute clip and it's engaging enough, it leads to maybe scheduling a meeting with a sales team.
Interesting. And who are the types of customer personas that are using the product today?
Yeah, so right now it's marketing and sales teams, people who are already really busy. Organizing a webinar maybe took an entire week, and then to edit it is completely unexpected. We also have teams of marketers who want to do more video related content, but aren't really sure where to start. So they have video call recordings, but they don't necessarily have a video producer on staff.
Makes sense. I don't know how much time I have, Daniel and Team Pioneer, so feel free to cut me off whenever. But last question on my side would be, where do you hope to expand the product long term?
Yeah, so we actually want to make it so that multiple people on a team can edit video really easily. So it's not designated to a specialist. And we're expecting there might be some value to creating forks of video templates, making separate cuts of separate parts that are relevant for a specific narrative. So a sales team might want to highlight something than a marketing team, or if you're reaching out to a finance customer, there might be startups or enterprise clients. So we're finding a variety of potential ways. Our first clients were service oriented, and we validated that there's a lot of people who are willing to pay for this. So we're moving the product that we built internally into a more public facing service. Once we see that that has some traction, then we'll expand from there.
How have so many folks already discovered the product today?
It's a lot of outreach. So I'm really good at getting people to talk to me and finding the right stakeholders on funded companies, often through marketing or webinar teams. We have 12 customers right now, and we're getting cold inbounds because people are seeing the shared content, and then people are referencing us as the source.
Good for you. That's awesome. It's not easy to get folks to start playing with a new product, but I can see why everyone has such a short attention span, giving people the ability to actually just capture from both the panelists and speaker content creator side, as well as the listener side. There's so much value in just helping people consume content in the way that they want to, and in a compressed period of time. So I can definitely see the value in it. Well done. Thanks for taking time.
Next up, we have Chen, presenting from Vancouver, presenting Nototo. As we've all seen on the internet, there's kind of a recent trend going on the web with things like Roam Research and Notion and what have you not about building pieces of software that kind of help you think and remember more. And Nototo is, I think, an extremely colorful take on that concept. And I'll let Chen take it from here.
Hi, Stephanie. Nice to meet you. My name is Chen. I'm one of the co-founders of Nototo, the spatial workspace. The idea behind Nototo is fairly simple. It's that we humans are very much spatial creatures. We're optimized over the past 100,000 years to be fantastically good at navigating space. Like we can all close our eyes right now and probably visualize every single detail within our room, yet we have never consciously tried to remember any of those information. So Nototo is designed to leverage off your spatial awareness by organizing all of your information on a plane, on this 2D map, to help you build a unified mental map of all of their information. So instead of navigating around your files like this through clicking open folders, you can navigate around your files like this. Here's a quick demo of Nototo. So this is actually the Nototo team's Nototo world. And you're looking at our Kanban board. The way you move around is similar to how you would move around in Google Maps or even Figma. And you can pass as well. So here I'm making a new area for my weekly Pioneer updates. I can make a new sub area on top by just clicking and making a new category. Weekly updates. And you can also make individual note blocks, which are kind of like our version of note files. So we launched an early prototype on Reddit a few months back, and people really resonated with the idea. We reached #1 on several big subreddits like productivity, like get studying, and now we got over 1.5K subscribers to our own subreddit, r/Nototo. So compared to Notion and Roam, Nototo takes a very orthogonal approach where our vision is really for you to be able to close your eyes and know exactly where every single piece of your file are. And that's gonna allow you to navigate to everything within under a second or two. And in the modern day of work, a lot of our jobs, especially myself as a small startup co-founder, is just to synthesize information. And being able to know where information are will help you think much more clearly and work more in the state of flow. We're planning to launch a more polished version in the Q1 of 2021, and we're looking to raise a 300K pre-seed round. That is
cool. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Chen. It looks like a super cool product. I love everything in the gaming world. Work with a company that's building a new kind of social gaming world, very Minecraft-like. And so love the idea of bringing that into the world of more taking collaboration and productivity. Can you share a little bit more about what makes the most sense here from a geographical or topological kind of perspective? How would you advise someone to start taking notes? You know, what does it mean to start creating an island here? What's a mountain here? What has really stuck, I think, for folks that have started using the product?
I think for individual users, I would advise them to kind of look at their life and break it down into larger categories. For example, myself, what I would used to do is I would look at my life, and I'm a big reader, so I would categorize reading as a separate area. And I used to be a student, so I would have another area for all my school things and another area for Nototo itself. And within these areas, you can generally break them down further. So within the books I'm reading, there are different types of books. There are books published in different dates, and I could organize them hierarchically like that. Similarly, with school, you could do courses. With my personal stuff, I can do within a personal area, personal journal, random thoughts, new ideas that I have. That's the approach I would take. But within teams, I would try to talk to someone who's in more of the position to handle all the information within the team and do a similar breakdown with them. Generally within teams, they already have organizational scheme. So it's easy there's a pretty analogous transformation from the list format into Nototo's hierarchical format. So that's what I would do, yeah.
And from your perspective, why does it make more sense, maybe as a note taker or as a note reader, to take notes in these more segmented formats versus different categories in your notebook, or different categories and whatever subsections of any note-taking product that you would normally use?
The difference that Nototo gives you a grasp of all of your information. I'm using Nototo every single day, and I'm able to tell you exactly where every single piece of my note is. If I want to navigate to my most recent book note, I could just zoom in and I could access that at a much quicker speed. And there's something about just knowing where your things are. It gives you this comfort about information and makes recording information much more satisfying. It gives you a much longer term feedback for the same amount of information that you would record.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And do you imagine long term that essentially you have this whole island of many, many things, many kind of clusters and islands, mini islands of information?
For sure. That's what a lot of our users do have at this stage. For example, one of our users, he's a DJ, and he would have this one, he has a huge area, more than what I have, for all his DJ music production related things. And at the same time, his actual job's a programmer, so he would have this other area for his career development and related things. So basically, be able to visualize all the information files in a spatial and visual manner.
Very cool. Thank you, Chen. Sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to introduce our next pioneers, Matt and Tomasz from California, and they're going to be presenting Taskable. Matt, Tomasz, take it away.
So hi, I'm Matt. I'm based in California. I'm working on Taskable alongside my co-founder, Tom, who's based in Warsaw, Poland. Taskable is a productivity assistant that keeps you in flow. On average, knowledge workers use 10 different software tools and spend over 2 hours searching through the internal documentation that they need just to get their work done. We're solving the problem of context switching and disaggregation of the information you need to do your work. We started working on this because Tom and I both had the same headache. We'd want to start on a task and we'd have to go into Slack to find a document. Then we'd get distracted by cat gifs. Then someone would share a funny video. Then we'd realize that document was actually in our Gmail, where we then get distracted by the latest thing at the top of our inbox. All this context switching pulls you out of your workflow and kills your productivity. For our go-to-market product, we have a few early integrations with Slack, Asana, Gmail, Google Calendar, and a Chrome extension that lets you add information into Taskable from anywhere on the web. We have an inbox feature that helps you prioritize by assigning effort and impact and organizing new information. Our All Actions page makes it easy to plan your day with drag and drop, and we always nudge you towards working on the highest leverage items by putting them at the top of your list. Finally, the Command Center feature lets you do things like schedule events right from Taskable, so you spend less time navigating to your calendar app. We think of Taskable as a new operating system for your digital world, helping you better navigate the 10+ tools you use on a daily basis. Our vision is to automate the inflow of relevant information into Taskable and help you send information to your other tools and even start automations and workflows, like qualifying leads and adding them to your CRM or arranging meetings. With Taskable, you spend less time getting lost and more time focused on your work. We have over 900 pre-registered users so far. We've onboarded about 1/3 of those to our closed beta. Our active users love the ease and simplicity of creating that single source of truth for everything they need to be productive. We're launching an open beta and paid plans in a few weeks, and we're currently raising a $250K pre-seed round. Tom and I have worked together for a while, having previously built the Navigator fundraise management product from scratch to over 1,000 users, and we're both second-time founders. Thanks, and I look forward to your questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. It's super nice to meet you. Super interesting, and I'm a big fan of everything in the collaboration productivity world. We're all, I think, drinking from the fire hose right now of different notifications coming in from every product you've got, every other product that your team is using. And so I think something like this is super useful. I'm curious if you think of Taskable as something that is both the read and write layer to all the other applications, or if it's more of a dashboard kind of home for content that you can check into, but that then you have to go into each of the applications to perform an action.
Yeah, definitely. It's more of the former. So we definitely want this to be a place where you can not only extract information from these tools, but also send information. So the first integration we have where you can do that is actually create a calendar event.
Yeah.
But the idea is you should be able to respond to a quick Slack message and say, I'm working on this, or send a quick email, or also you're going to be using project management tools like Jira or Clubhouse or Asana, and so being able to assign tasks to your teammates as well. So very much sort of a two-way communication. So it's sort of like this operating system where you sort of layer all these different products on it. We pull in the right information that you need to get work done. If you need to do a quick check-in in Slack, then you can do that. We don't want to replace some of these other tools. These other collaboration tools are great. You need to have that collaboration time, but when you need to get deep focused work done, Taskable is your place to do that.
Interesting. And how do you get someone started? Because I assume that the number one thing that probably takes the spot is either email, where everything gets funneled into, or Slack in various channels that you just get dumps of notifications and messages. How do you get someone started, just to test the product, and then how do you get them to kind of share it with their teams? Yeah, definitely. So I think everyone's sort of looking for a new way of working. And actually, we originally thought we could replace that workflow that people have of marking things as unread or starring messages in Slack and going back there. And that's why we initially started with Slack and Gmail as our initial integrations. We're finding is that most people come to us actually from Notion, where they're trying to solve that disaggregation problem. And the problem with Notion is, Notion's a great product, but once that's not the use case for it. Once you get a bunch of data in there, you spend so much time having to maintain your dashboard, set up your workflows. Especially becomes hard if you have a team and sort of your Notion page is a manifestation of your own brain. So you're trying to bring someone else in that fold, it gets a bit messy. So we're creating a much more structured version of that aggregation and also making it the two-way sync as well. Yeah, makes sense. Super interesting. And have you noticed any patterns in the types of early adopters that you have, either in companies, functional roles, pain points that they've had that were the tipping point for them to try something new? We initially started because Tom and I were both freelancing, working in agencies, and we had that problem of having to monitor like 4 Slacks, 4 Saunas. It was a huge mess. So we started there, and then we started working on this and had more of the founder type problems. And so in a way, we've sort of been we're solving our own problems. So we're sort of marketing to people like us. So we spend time in communities like Indie Hackers and Pioneer, of course. And that's where we're finding our early adopters. Yeah, so that's sort of been our initial target market. I think the issue that initially we were really focused on this disaggregation problem. How do you bring all this information from these various tools into here? And then we also, once we did that, we sort of saw that second order problem of, similar to Notion, was if you get all this information in here, then you're creating this digital clutter, you're creating this sense of overwhelm, you're creating this sense of chaos in a different place. So we've been really thinking a lot about that planning and prioritization side of things, which is where we've been spending a lot, and also that sort of focus mode side. So we've been really thinking about that a lot, and it's really useful, I think, for me as a user, but for our users as well, to have that just gentle nudge on here's what you should be working on, taking away some of that analysis paralysis of I have a million things to be doing today. What's just the next thing I can do to move the needle and not having to think about that? It's a super sleek product. Well done. Nice. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Well, that was exciting. Stephanie, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.
Next up, we have Avichal, our final host today.
Excited to be here.
Awesome. Avichal, I'm going to connect you now to Daniel Getman, who's from North Carolina. He's going to be presenting Swii. Take it away, Daniel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Getman. I'm the founder of Swii. We make healthy foods taste delicious. America has an unhealthy relationship with food. While 63% of Americans think that they eat healthy most or all the time, actually 86% give in to over half of their cravings for indulgent foods. This is the miracle berry. It's been used for centuries by the tribes people of Western Africa to make their foods taste delicious. It contains a protein which temporarily binds to your taste buds, making sour foods taste sweet, but also removing bitterness and other unpleasant flavors. Swii is the first ever convenient miracle fruit product. By removing bitterness and tartness, it unmasks the natural flavors in foods that you previously couldn't notice. It does this without adding any aftertaste, unlike stevia, monk fruit, or aspartame. And it enables Americans to enjoy healthy foods that they would otherwise hate and satisfy their cravings without the guilt. For instance, it makes a Greek yogurt taste like ice cream, lemons like lemonade, and even the blandest strawberries will explode with new flavor. In 2020, 43% of Americans went on a diet, spending $72 billion. Most diets don't stick because they suck. Swii revolutionizes this market by giving people an option that they can actually look forward to. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We're also getting pull into several different medical use cases. In recent news, miracle fruit has been shown to help COVID-19 patients with their loss of taste. We're currently raising a round, and we'd greatly appreciate introductions to any businesses in the food space, or even tech companies that would like to stock Swii in their cafeterias. If you'd like to try it out for yourself, go to swii.co and use the code Livestream for 10% off. Thank you very much. And I know this sounds kind of crazy, so to prove that this actually works, let's do a live demo. So Avichal, I'd like you to just start off with a baseline. I want you to bite into a lime.
Okay, got a lime.
So that everyone knows there's no trickery here.
Ugh.
Let's see if we can change that face. So now I'd like you to take a packet of Swii, give it a few flicks just to let the powder settle, then tear it open and sprinkle it onto your tongue. So Swii is freeze-dried miracle fruit powder. It comes from this berry. And something interesting you'll notice is that it has the product has an effervescent effect. That is not the miracle fruit. That is something I've added. But it's something I added to improve the user experience and make it a more intuitive process. So Avichal, when it stops popping, that's your signal to go ahead and bite into the lime again.
Gotcha. So I just hold it on my tongue until it stops burning?
Until it stops popping, that's correct.
Okay, sounds good. Good to go.
Yeah, go ahead and bite into the lime again.
Whoa. Holy crap.
What does
it's like eating candy.
Can you explain to the audience what it tastes like?
Yeah, it tastes like eating a lemon drop. It tastes like eating candy. Holy crap. Wow.
Audible cues are very important to give users the feedback that they've done something correct. So think about the click of a seatbelt or the pop of a Snapple. So I really wanted to add that audible cue to Miracle Fruit to, add some magic to the magical fruit, but also make it kind of foolproof.
I grabbed some other stuff too. So you told me to get maybe some yogurt, and it literally tastes like ice cream. This is crazy.
Thank you.
Oh my God. I also got I got some sauerkraut. I tried to brainstorm things that are sour, and I thought of sauerkraut.
And here's the really cool thing. So this lasts 30 minutes to an hour. So even after you've interviewed the other 2 live streamers, you can go ahead and take some bourbon and it won't burn.
Wow, that's crazy. That's so cool. How are you thinking about actually having this be like a brand that you go direct to consumers versus like an additive for companies to use in their products?
Yeah, so right now our focus is on direct to consumer, as you said, but we do see a potential for going B2B, whether that is with consumer brands, so coffee companies, fruit juices, various sweets. But we could also partner with even pharmaceuticals to make great tasting medications.
So which of those use cases do you think you prioritize? Like I could imagine this being great for like weight loss or something. You're just like,
Absolutely.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, so our focus right now is on that weight loss angle by helping people eat healthy foods that they otherwise wouldn't, and also satisfy their sugar cravings so that instead of reaching for ice cream, they could get some Greek yogurt instead. They are putting themselves at a caloric deficit without really having to struggle with those cravings. And so by doing that, they can lose weight. That's the only scientifically proven way to lose weight, with a caloric deficit.
And so when you're prioritizing, do you think you end up with like just your own brand that you try to take this to market, almost like a stevia or one of these like sweeteners, and you end up with like literally packets that you can sell?
Absolutely. We hope we can be the next Splendor and the next stevia that's completely natural and without an aftertaste.
Yeah, it's a beautiful note to end on, a sweet note to end on, I should say. Thank you so much for great. Yeah, I mean, Avichal really turning into an Instagram influencer here. Appreciate that. Next up, we have Chris, Harry, and Lewis from the Netherlands, who will be presenting HackerStash. HackerStash is kind of an interesting take in terms of being kind of half GitHub, half Patreon, a new way of kind of funding software on the internet. I'm going to let them tell you more about it. Take it away, guys.
My name's Chris, and I'm one of the co-founders of HackerStash, and we're building Patreon for hackers. So at the moment, there's just way too many projects that die in a ditch before they've even gotten to market, let alone found product market fit. But we think that HackerStash can help with that. By using the power of community, we can supercharge people's projects, and we can help them earn experimental capital to drive their projects forwards too. So HackerStash is a new community that's designed to move people's projects forwards. Each week in HackerStash is a mini tournament. Community members share updates and news about their project, and they vote on competing projects. And then the top competitors win funds that will help to support their business. So I will show you around the app. So this is the real-time leaderboard. You can see the expected prizes for people that are participating at the moment. There's a community forum where people can share updates on their projects, ask for advice. You can browse all the other projects. You can filter by different categories, for example, donations. As a business model, you can view the project page to see how they're doing in the tournament, but also to learn more about their business and who's in the team. And then at the end of each week, the leaderboard is closed and prizes are distributed. So a HackerStash subscription costs $9 per month, but there is a catch. None of that money is for us. So all the subscription fees go straight into the prize pool, and that gets awarded to the community's chosen winners each week. And the community members can cash out their winnings at any time. So we've just concluded beta testing now, and yeah, we've had 20 or so people beta testing. This is some of the top earners during beta testing. We have 321 people on our wait list that we are sending invites out to tomorrow. We'll be looking to launch on Product Hunt and other platforms in the next couple of weeks, and we're currently raising a seed round of 300K. Thanks very much.
Really interesting. Is the leaderboard, like, who's coming up with the challenges, or how does the leaderboard work exactly? Are they like bounties to solve certain problems, or are they?
So there's a combination of two different things. There's weekly challenges, which are mostly about fostering engagement within the community. So it's encouraging you to make sure that you're sharing advice and with other people and sharing updates about how your project is doing, and also encouraging you to vote on other projects that you find interesting. And then the other way that you climb the leaderboard is when people engage with your posts or with your comments and with your project, they can upvote those independently, and all that's aggregated to form your project score.
Gotcha. So it's a sense of sort of overall engagement and commitment to the community, and sort of contributions to the community across, not just the code, but the other contributions.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a combination of sort of altruism in terms of wanting to support and other hackers and entrepreneurs that are in the community, coupled with, like, you know, really wanting to showcase how well you're progressing and getting rewarded for that as well.
What kind of, on both sides of the market, what kinds of hackers do you think are going to participate in this community in the early days, and what kinds of people are going to pay $9 a month to support these people?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of it is the sort of audience that you expect in communities like indie hackers, for example, where I'm also very active. People who are trying to bootstrap predominantly, and you know, they're looking for small cash injections that could help them do things like test an AdWords campaign or cover their AWS bill for a few months, this sort of thing. And it's probably really anybody that's right from the inception of their project through to, like, I guess, seed stage, like very, very latest. It wouldn't be suitable for someone that had taken a serious funding round, for example.
Yeah, that's interesting. I could imagine companies wanting to sponsor stuff like this too, right? If there are a bunch of independent open source devs out there that are contributing to projects that the big companies are drafting on top of, it kind of makes sense for them to effectively sponsor the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's something that we'd be looking to in the future, is sort of sponsored prize pools or separate tournament streams where you could join, like, an open source tournament thread that was focused exclusively on open source tournaments. It could be sponsored by different companies.
Makes sense. So how do you guys make money in the middle?
So at the moment, we're not actually focusing on how we can make money. There's the sort of first port of call is to build a really healthy, thriving community, and like, in terms of routes to monetization later, like, there's things like you just discussed, like sponsored prize pools, and likewise, we can move into directions like revenue-based financing for really promising projects, or there's a million different ways we can do that, but we're gonna cross that bridge a bit later.
Cool, great job, super interesting.
Last, certainly, and not least, before our upcoming interview with Mike from Instagram, we have Justin from Belgium. And Justin's going to be presenting Foundation. Justin, take it away.
Hi there, I'm Justin, and I'm working on Foundation. We are building the first factory on the moon. So self-replication is the hallmark of life, and our vision is to build infrastructure in space at massive scale using self-replicating robots. The road to self-replication and a sustainable business will be long, though, but we have a plan. Let's give some context first. Transport within the solar system is virtually solved. NASA is going back to the moon by 2024, and that means we must now industrialize space. But how do we do that? Well, first, let me tell you how not to do it. All the business models that involve producing something in space and then selling it on Earth are bound to failure due to transportation costs. A better business is selling products to settlers on the moon, things like shelters, oxygen, and food. The products needed by settlers have an interesting property. There's a lower bound on their price, and it's their launch cost. Even if you assume that building an oxygen tank on Earth is free, settlers will still spend millions of dollars to bring it to the moon. Bootstrapping space manufacturing starts with selling products to settlers that have been made on site using materials found there. And that's precisely what we're planning to do. If we can sell our manufactured products for less than their launch cost, we have a viable business. All right, but how do you actually build in space? Well, on the left, this is one of NASA's manufacturing stack. It involves more than 100 different processes. We need to come up with something simpler that won't lead to costs similar to Apollo's. We have identified a chemical process and a manufacturing technique which together can become a universal constructor. This is the Foundation Mark I, our answer to the hard problem of on-site lunar manufacturing. It is an Earth-based proof of concept. All right, here's how we see Foundation in about 6 years. Our manufacturing machines will have been tested and deployed on the moon alongside settlers' bases. We will have built pieces of their supporting infrastructure, like the tanks you're seeing on the render. Long term, it becomes very, very exciting. In about 15 years, we will close the manufacturing loop, allowing us to build our robots and machines on the moon too, instead of sending them, a step closer to self-replication. This will lead to an exponential growth and thus becoming the most valuable company in the solar system. We have been moving very, very fast in the last 6 months. Right now, we're building a machine that, when fed with artificial lunar dust, can print the extracted metal into small objects. This will be the very first demonstration of an end-to-end system that goes from lunar dust to useful products. And we should be done by Q3 2021. Our team has extensive experience in manufacturing, aerospace, robotics, and AI, and we are currently raising a seed round. Thanks.
That's amazing. That's amazing in so many ways. So I guess the first question is, I mean, how do you turn this into a viable business that doesn't rely on outside capital for 10 years before you can even start selling the product? I'm just curious how you're thinking about that.
This is a very good question. So first, our plan is we will basically rely on people that have money and that have ambition to build bases on the moon, right? So like, as I said at the beginning of the slides, of the slide deck, if we can sell very heavy products for less than their launch cost, it is economically very attractive for them to just buy these from us instead of like shipping them there. But long term, what we want to do is we want to basically expand the kind of things we can produce in space and then do something with those. So either we can go into the direction of producing electricity in space and beaming it back. But I think the most exciting thing we can do if we can build in space is start building spaceship outside the gravitational field of Earth. Because if you don't have to ship them, you can build gigantic spaceship around the moon. So that's the first thing we will do. And then we want to go to Mars, basically piggyback on SpaceX's ambition there.
Gotcha. Is there something you can do on Earth that is that allows you to have like a viable business, even if it's something selling to SpaceX or NASA, just so you can keep the capital flowing?
Exactly.
Yes. So this is just like capital for 10 years.
Yeah, we thought about that a lot, and it's actually huge. Like it is very hard. So something you can do is basically we're hopeful that NASA will fund us if we have simple chemical processes that are packed in a box and are space proofed, so that we can just send those on their mission and they acquire it and they own the output. And we can start with that. But if you mean basically trying to exploit our technology on Earth, the very difficult thing is that manufacturing processes on Earth will be very different from the one in space. And so it's very hard to find an overlap in the diagram between things that are useful in space and things that are useful on Earth. Because everything has been so optimized on Earth that it's almost impossible to compete with the manufacturing processes here.
Yeah, I was thinking things like, you know, are there inhospitable places on Earth where it might still make sense to I don't know, like, can you go to the middle of the desert or, you know, can you go to Mongolia, like places where you don't have infrastructure yet, but you might have very similar challenges and there are ways to make money.
No, that makes sense. What we wanted to do would be to have this kind of like seed box that we would ship to developing countries and that would kickstart their manufacturing. That would be amazing, right? But the very difficult thing is space is actually, especially the moon, it's amazing for that kind of projects because literally the lunar dust is 30% metal. And you just have to like process it and you have free stuff. Deserts are mostly silicon. So apart from building mirrors, you can't do much. So it is actually very hard to find a place where you have all the materials you need around you and you can do something very similar. The cool thing is if like some of the chemical processes we work on and some of the additive manufacturing techniques we work on can scale, we will probably maybe like license some of the technologies on Earth. But in terms of like having a very clean solution that allows you to deploy this thing on Earth first, we have explored that quite a lot, but we didn't find any significant overlap.
Gotcha. Fascinating. And when you think about like how much capital do you actually need to make V1 of this happen on the moon? Like how much do you have to raise to even get this shipped?
So we have a budget to have V1 on Earth. So on Earth, you have this thing called artificial lunar dust, and it's basically the closest thing you can get to lunar dust if you don't steal the Apollo samples. So basically, if we can prove that you can feed this thing in like the input of the machine and outside you get a tank, then we've pretty much won on Earth and we can raise more capital. So building that Right now, we estimate it will cost us between 3 and 10 millions to go through the research and stuff like that. In space, the problem is we don't have any prices for the moon yet. Starship wants to bring those down to a reasonable amount, but I think it will take at least more than $500 million to go to the moon. Wow. But it's very hard to say now because even SpaceX doesn't know how much bringing 1 kg to the moon will cost.
What's you think the impetus for people to actually build the bases on the moon? We went there in the 70s and then we stopped. So what's different this time around? Why are we actually going to colonize the moon, you think?
So the axiom, the only thing you need to accept as true without proving it is that we want to build a sustainable civilization on Mars, right? We want life to be multiplanetary. And if you accept that, then going to the moon is the perfect workout to learn how to build, collaborate in deep space before going to Mars. Because it's much closer, you can shoot rockets there every day, you only have a 2 seconds delay. It's basically the perfect playground before going to Mars. And I think this will be the biggest driver of people building bases on the moon. That's one thing. The second thing is there are a lot of rare metals on the moon. And so entrepreneurs could show up there and be like, actually, we will make propellant on the moon, or we will mine helium-3 that is actually useful for fusion on the moon. But the single biggest driver, in my opinion, is just learning how to live in deep space.
And so how much are you guys raising to get to this next step?
We're not very comfortable discussing this in public right now, but happy to chat about it in private if you want.
That's super cool. Yeah, I love that this is so, it's so ambitious, and it's so different than what you normally see. It's, really applaud you having a big vision here.
Thanks for the insightful questions. It was great. Thanks, Avichal.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Avichal. Very timely, of course, to have this presentation today out of all days, as Boom Supersonic does their rollout, which Avichal is, of course, an investor in from very much the early days. So I think we both remember someone not unlike Justin coming to us with a PDF, right? Not really knowing what they're doing. And lo and behold, now it's rolling out of a hangar. Awesome. Thank you both. That was our last presentation, our last Pioneer for today. However, please stay tuned. We are going to a quick step back into history with Mike Krieger, the founder of Instagram, about what it was like in the early days. And then after that, we'll tally the votes of everyone who's been watching and announce a winner of the live stream today. I'd like to bring up Mike. Thanks for spending time with us today. I was just using Instagram earlier today, as 2 billion people do every day. So it seems to be relatively successful. Now, I heard a bit of a surprise. We have a video from the early days of Instagram to kick things off. Is that right?
That's right. This was fun because I didn't even know this existed, and I clearly recorded it because it's my user account. So it's 10 years old, blast from the past. Let's see what, it's funny because you originally asked like what is the seed deck? And we raised on Bourbon, which was the product before, and that was just on a demo. The government actually, when I went to get my H-1B, asked us for a pitch deck, and I had to make one, but it was about Bourbon and kind of contrived because it was mostly for the government. But I did find the basically launch video for Instagram V1, and in a total coincidence, we launched exactly 10 years and 1 day ago.
Oh, wow.
2010.
That's awesome.
It could not be more well-timed.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, let me bring it up.
Wow. Yeah, I'm already thrown back into history.
Yeah. First of all, let's observe these amazing skeuomorphic icons. Look at this. This is great. It sadly doesn't have my favorite, which was the YouTube icon, which was a little TV, if you remember that.
Right.
This is your iPhone. I guess this must have been the simulator, which didn't come with it. There was an iPod app. That's so good. This is great. I love these icons. So this was the icon we launched with. So here we are in 2010. Kevin, my co-founder, actually made that icon from scratch in Photoshop, kind of based on an old Polaroid. I think it's the FX70. I'm not 100% sure.
That's some serious Photoshop skills. You got some gradients going on a shine.
Something definitely got lost in Photoshop skills as we moved to this flatter design. All right, so let's say you are opening the app on October 6, 2010. This is, what we launched with, so let's play it. All right, here we go, we open it. So things to note, we had this the font was Billabong in the header, back when we still needed a header because you didn't, you had to know which app you were in. If you wanted to refresh the feed, there were these things called refresh buttons that you would press back in the day before ubiquitous sync and pull to refresh. So that's an option. But Instagram from the beginning, all about sharing your life on the go. So Aaron here has posted a photo at Blue Bottle, which was a fairly new cafe back then too, 12 hours ago. we had location tags, lattes. So some things change, some things, stay exactly the same.
Fascinating
Scrolling
how
feed.
much of it is stable, actually.
It is really interesting to think of it, to look at that. And, when you think of the primitives here, it's like, photo. At the time we had an inset. Fun fact, the reason uploads were so fast at Instagram at the time is we would upload exactly, this is pre-retina display, 306 pixels. You might ask why. Well, the screen was 320 wide and we had a 6-pixel inset on either side. So we uploaded exactly what we needed to get that uploaded and at full res on the one device we supported, which was the iPhone. Likes and comments, people take this for granted. We were one of the first apps to actually have comments in line in the feed, which was a little bit expensive on the scrolling performance. We had to do a bunch of optimizations there, but it made a huge difference because you could see the conversation in context. So this is pre-launch. Fun thing, this is one of our core principles is do the simple thing first. We had no aggregation logic for likes or comments because we had only tested it with our group of, at the time, 100 test flight users, and no post ever got more than 20 likes. You can imagine that when we actually launched and actually took off, it did not go well. So the first week, if you had 1,000 comments on your post, it would just have 1,000 comments.
That's amazing.
And 1,000 likes, and we shipped an update pretty quickly. But it's funny, like in some ways it's Clown Town. On the other hand, if we'd spent all this time worrying about it, maybe we would have slowed down launch. If you like a photo, you can tap this like button and it'll animate over there. That one animation, maybe we can watch it again. That probably took me more than almost anything else in the whole event to do that correctly and to do it really quickly. Anyway, double tap to like wasn't until 2011 or maybe 2012. So that was longer time coming. So you hit these things called like buttons.
Standard UI table views here, or did you rebuild everything from scratch?
These were UI table views that I spent an incredible amount of time optimizing. So, this was the time where scroll perf, I feel like apps still screw up scroll perf.
Yeah.
But we were obsessive about it. And Kev had an iPhone 3G. So this, I think, is a showing. I think this is the iPhone 3GS. So he had one that was like particularly slow. It was like an extra slow one. It was great because if we could make it scroll well on that, we'd make it scroll well on everything. But we had to do all sorts of stuff, like you try to render it as one, hierarchy instead of having a bunch of sub layers. We did some off-screen caching. So when you hit that like button, we actually rendered it off screen and then animated it in and all sorts of other fun stuff there. We had the popular feed. Global view, no personalization at all. Personalization came in like 2014. And this was effectively just a view of the most liked photos on Instagram with a 4-hour time decay. That's the simple thing that you could do. It's my dog actually on the third row, so she was popular. And there's me. I mean, this was clearly still in the beta phase. Like we only had our beta testers in here. Now you could scroll through. I don't think there was like infinite scroll at all. It just was like some number of photos. We get to see the comment screen now here. So full screen comment view, typing it in. But here's a nice little thing. Networks were not very fast back then, but we did a lot of optimistic UI in here. So you notice that the comment shows in feed instantly, even though it's still uploading to the server, like little things that make a difference.
How did you guys have some type of layer that handled how to do conflict resolution in that case?
It wasn't very fancy. Like if you, basically on the client side, we tried to keep reasonable state, and if it failed, then it would show as failure. But I'd be lying if I said it was particularly fancy. It was basically like, it was definitely a simple thing first approach. We could see the posting flow. So this is a Jack Russell Terrier. I grew up with a Jack Russell. This one kind of looks like my dog. Pinch to zoom. Filters. So, this was, the original Instagram calling card. We had 14 or so at launch. Kevin built all of these. At the time, these were written in, I think just C. So these were going basically pixel by pixel and applying a color transform and then overlaying a border. In 2011, we rewrote the filter stack to use OpenGL, and it was much faster and we could do fancier things. But this was like the original version. I think probably clicks through a few of these.
How long, I mean, was this relatively easy to make performant, I guess, given that you only had 300 pixels, or did this?
Yeah, that's what saved us, is it wasn't too bad. I'm trying to remember if we actually, we definitely cached them once generated, and it kind of limited what we could do. But yeah, that was, effectively, the first thing that we did that was really a performance kind of tax was when we added tilt shift, so selective blur to make, part of your photo look blurry and part of it not. And that, when you're doing a convolution kernel, was definitely more expensive. And I wrote a C version of it that was actually pretty good. I think you only had to do one run through the image, so it wasn't super complex. And it would introduce a little bit of precision error, but that was okay. And then we eventually did that in OpenGL, and that was super fast. Like, GL is awesome at applying a kernel across an image. Fun fact also, the last 4 filters here were actually paid filters that we were going to launch with StoreKit integration. You would pay $1 for these filters. Like, we got to make money somehow. And there was a bug in StoreKit, and Apple was basically like, hey, we can't get this to work on our end. And we're like, but it works on our end. And it was like, we could have gone back and forth with them. At the time, app review was like a 3-week process, not like the 24-hour-ish turnaround they have now. And we're like, we can't wait 3 weeks. Let's just make them free and figure out monetization later. So that would have probably maybe change our trajectory somehow, at least change the popularity of these last few filters. Yeah, run through there. So another fun little performance detail. Now that you've hit your filter, if you notice the little network indicator goes on, right, we are uploading your filtered photo to basically prepare it on the server, so that if you did finish uploading, it would be pretty quick. I think that was one of the best things we did. Geolocation, this was powered by Foursquare at the time. I think we were powered by Foursquare for a few years before we moved over, I think, eventually to Facebook Places. Tag Blue Bottle, you can type a caption in there. You notice that this is not on very fast internet, it's still uploading the photo. And I guess we had Twitter sharing. I think we would have launched Facebook sharing very soon after launch, but I think we had Twitter, the beta. And then boom, this is just sending up your caption and done. And there you go, it's in feed, pretty speedy. Yeah, I think the other 2 tabs were a news tab where it was basically just stuff on your photos. We didn't have that view where you could see what other people were liking and commenting. It was just purely reactions to your stuff. And then finally your profile. So again, a lot that's different now. There's stories. I know they added reels now, shopping, but like the core feed is actually pretty stable.
Yeah, that to me is probably the largest lesson here. I'm curious to ask you so many questions. One, only semi-related one that's top of mind is, a lot of people have pontificated that the link in bio strategy is like a deep, strategic chess move by Instagram. Is that the case, or is it that just like no one ever had the time to write a URLifier on the comments?
I think this is one of those ones where like a technical constraint means that you don't do something. The thing that we did on Instagram, Kevin and I, when we were still there, was like, everything we added, we were pretty deliberate about, to like not just think about the first order consequence, like, yeah, there are links in feed, but more like, all right, well, what does that enable in a good and a bad way? So we initially didn't implement it simply because, like, at the time, like core text, which is the iOS tech stack, was fairly new, at least in the public API. Doing links, especially multi-line ones, and linkifying them and color, it was actually like kind of hard. Even when we added linkified at mentions and hashtags, like the way that worked for a long time was super jank. Like we would try to calculate the offsets and draw invisible buttons on top of those things so that when you clicked on it, it would do the right thing. It was that kind of thing, but it worked. But links were more complicated using that system. And then we realized we were afraid it would create a feed full of like promotional content linking off to other things, or something that became very news oriented rather than about personal stories. And then we realized like we really were better suited to keeping feed link free and then giving people this one link in the bio. So I think the answer is both, like technical constraint that made its way into strategic decision afterwards.
So interesting. And kind of going back to this, what was your and Kev's thinking in the early days, Dogpatch Labs, in terms of like the future of Instagram and where it would go?
I think the thing that has been the thread throughout, and I think they're continuing it forward even without us there, is like fundamentally about like sharing stuff that you care about with the people you care about. And I think that the piece around interests was something that was not necessarily in our mind as much early on, right? I mean, in some ways it was, in that we chose to make it a follow graph rather than just a friend graph. So it kind of opened the door for that. But that really that's just not an interesting use case unless most interests are on Instagram. And at the beginning, it was mostly, your friends. And the one interest you could follow very successfully was, I want to see cool photos of things, which was like the initial use case. But I think that was maybe the biggest interesting surprise and kind of emergent behavior that we were able to capture.
You mentioned kind of StoreKit earlier. Do you guys have plans for making money, or you're kind of like, we're just going to put it out there and see what happens?
I think that the intuition that if we succeeded, like a visual medium that was, pretty sticky would be an interesting platform for ads. We didn't know exactly what those would look like, but I think that was the sort of both intuition and sort of shared understanding with our sort of seed and Series A investors. It was, maybe not surprising, but maybe notable how little time was spent in either of those rounds talking about exact plans. It was sort of, like, well, you guys will figure this out eventually. Like, it's not, there was no heavy stress about that. We did have a few like branded, we ran, most people don't know this, we ran an ad the first week we ever had Instagram out on the Explore page, on the popular page. There was a company called Photo Jojo that used to sell like cool, like vintage camera equipment. And they're like, oh, this platform's great. We'll pay to like promote a thing on popular.
Wow, those guys were
like,
early.
They were very early. I'm not even sure how we charged them. Presumably we did. Maybe it was like a thing in kind. Maybe they promoted. I actually don't remember. But that was actually the first like monetized surface. And then we didn't do anything like that ever again until we actually ran ads in feed.
Fascinating. How did you guys get the original idea to even make filters?
So I at the time, before joining up with Kev to do Instagram, I was commuting every day from Potrero Hill to Mountain View on the Caltrain every day. And the iPhone was fairly new, come out in 2007. The App Store was really starting to emerge. And I was obsessed with these filtering apps. So there was one called Camera Bag that had really good ones for the time. There was obviously Hipstamatic. Hipstamatic had just won App of the Year in the previous year. And I go back to this thing that Kathy Sierra wrote about startups like way back in the day, about like how the best startups like make you both feel and look awesome. Like you're proud of what you're sharing. Like it makes you feel like you created something new. Like it just makes you feel good about what you're doing. And that was sort of the core reason we built filters. Like the camera, we were building this for the 3GS. Like that did not have a great, you're seeing these photos. This is clearly actually a DSLR photo. Like I think the stuff that was in the feed at the time is more representative. Like that was the average photo quality on a, like you look at this like popular page, like they weren't great. So at least with filters, they gave you a reason to feel like you were sharing something that felt a little bit more artistic or a little bit more, in line with what it felt like to be in the moment, rather than the thing that was just coming off the sensor. And then you could pretty much chart like sensor quality improvement and filter popularity and their inverse correlation as the years went on.
So like if you think if the iPhone launches with the camera that it has today, the kind of room for Instagram may be lessened.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting is I think if you think of Snapchat's calling card, several years later, it wasn't the color filters, which were, just kind of there and they weren't particularly good. It was the AR masks and those kind of things where that was the new, like, I think it's always interesting when you can launch a sort of content type where other people looking at it ask how it was made,
Right.
and then want to seek out the place that was able to create it. So I think that, I think had the iPhone had an amazing camera in 2009, 2010 when we were launching, I think we would have maybe still done color filters if they were novel at the time. They would have been more subtle probably, and we would have probably had to start looking at other ways in which to differentiate the photos. Maybe we'd lean more on borders, which were a little bit less like in your face than the color filters were.
Fascinating. That's awesome. What was the point at which you kind of, a better way of asking it is, what do you feel like set Instagram apart from all of the other photo sharing apps at the time?
I think simplicity was one where we spent a bunch of time making every screen as simple as possible. Like other apps that were doing photos at the time, their sharing screen was like many steps, and it was like you're making all these, it was like, okay, what is this? Optionally, where did you take it? And then you can choose to share somewhere else. So I think like very clean UI design. You look at it now, obviously this is like in the paradigm of the time, and stuff generally looks better, I think. But like in terms of like basic layout, I think we had a very simple design. Same with the comment screen. So that was one. Perf was another one. Every time we worked on performance, usage increased. And I think that like the work we did around optimistic comments, optimistic likes here, like uploading the photo in the background, I think, we were dealing with pretty slow internet at the time, on 3G networks. So that was the other one. And I think lastly, the filters being an interesting hook. Like I think had a nice set of them. They're, you look at them now and they look pretty over the top. But like, I think at the time they felt like oh, this is like a new, different thing. So I think that was the piece that let it grow and let people, or got people to seek it out in a way that I think other photo apps felt more like an insular community without any real reason to share.
Why do you think you were so obsessed with speed? I mean, obviously you now know in hindsight it's correlated to usage. Did you know that at the time, or does the obsession come from a deeper place?
I think it comes from both me and Kevin really like have a strong allergy to lag in all things, including UIs. I think that's one of them. And then I think there was, like, from a case study perspective, back when the web was the place where most things happen. Like, I remember Amazon would publish the results where they would find, a half a second improvement in website latency would lead to some increase in sales throughput. So I think that was already sort of a thing. And also, like, the engineering culture at Meebo, which is where I was working at before Instagram, was definitely one of perf and scale. And I think it resonated with me, and it kind of stayed with me there too.
Wow, Meebo, that's really a throwback.
Yeah, I learned a ton about scalability and non-blocking web servers from what they were doing. They were ahead of the curve there too.
That's total, 2010 throwback era.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Wow, thanks for doing this. I mean, this is like so delightful to look at. It's fascinating to me how much has changed and what hasn't. In fact, I think both equally interesting.
And fun fact, you can actually, I think this month, turn on that original icon. So if you're nostalgic for that old icon, if you pull up on the settings screen, there's like an Easter egg where you can turn on the old icon. So you can live this demo yourself too. They could have gone all the way and actually replaced the original UI, although that would have been a ton of work. The icon is back.
Awesome. Well, I'd be excited to do that. I think skeuomorphism can now make a return. Cycles and counter cycles are everything. Thank you so much for this.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. All right. So really one final thing for us here today. Thank you all everyone for tuning in. The voting results for today. Obviously, I think we had a tremendous amount of presentations really from all over the world, everywhere from Belgium to the Middle East to the United States. And people working on kind of everything as well. Top 3 is voted by our audience. I think are kind of interesting to look at. Thank you all for voting. Thank you all for watching. In third place, we have Daniel Getman, who's making Swii, the kind of new stevia in North Carolina. In second place, we have Milk, founded by Lenny Bogdonoff in New York City, that kind of instantly turns videos into shareable highlights. In first place, we have Foundation. This is the company started by Justin Gilbert in Belgium, who will hopefully build the first factory on the moon so that we may become fully interplanetary. Before we depart, I would really like to thank everyone for watching. I would like to thank all of our hosts for spending time with us today and for interviewing our pioneers. Hopefully this is exciting for them, for you. If you are curious about Pioneer, if you think you probably aren't good enough to, at least try Pioneer, I would recommend you just do it under a pseudonym or something. No one has to see you if you fail. And if you do, you may end up on a live stream like this. So it could be pretty exciting. I'd like to finally thank the entire Pioneer team for building this little city on the internet for us. Everyone from Rishi to Sam to Santi to James, and of course, Jackson, our fearless MC, who is responsible for the control and the setup of the event today. So thank you again all for watching. One final thing I should mention, the hats that we are all wearing today will soon be available for sale. We are becoming an apparel brand, as is the imperative of every type of community in the world right now. And so stay tuned for more on that. That is it, folks. See you on the internet soon. Bye-bye, everyone.